For you, Josh.
They just bought in the borough.
Call this meeting to order, meeting of the July work session of the Indiana Borough Council. We are not planning to vote on anything tonight, so there's no need to call the roll. We are going to have an executive session at the end for legal purposes. That is, if the technology allows our solicitor to join us at that point.
Is he not feeling well? Oh.
Any other additions or changes to the agenda? Public participation. If there's anybody online or not, Kyle is checking. But no hands are raised. Okay. Then we'll move straight to the committee reports, if any. Does administration have a report?
No, we're just gonna have Casey present the reapportionment.
Anyone have anything to report?
Just quick announcements from DI, things coming up. On this Thursday, July 21st, there is both a third Thursday as well as the first Commonwealth Bank Taste and Tour event. If you want tickets to the Taste and Tour, they're on showclicks.com. And yeah, that's it. Showclicks, SHOWCLIX.com.
Any questions for community development?
How much are the tickets?
30 for one or 2 for 50.
Thursday.
No. Shade Tree have anything to report?
No.
Once again, now, we are going to be bringing up the ARP funding budget again. I think we're going to do that at admin. So if any council members have next Tuesday free, if you want to hit up admin, we're going to start bringing ARP stuff back to the table again for budget stuff that we had budgeted, but kind of haven't followed through with future, what's the plan moving forward for some funding.
Any questions for the manager? Chief?
As promised, I have June's calls for service report included in the agenda meeting minutes. Earlier, I would just offer now that June of 2022's calls for service were quite similar to June of 2019's without getting into a detailed breakdown. I'm always available to answer any questions if council has. Other than that, we're preparing for a Starlit Night event from the police department that'll be taking place at the end of this month. That's just a moving escort through town. And then the Italian Festival is scheduled for August 14th. And in between there will be National Night Out on August 2nd. And we invite all the community members to join First Responder Partners in IRMC Park from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. on August 7th. We'll have all of our partners will be there, and we'll have a few fun surprises for the kids.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
Probably not. No, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Bless you again.
Are there questions for the chief? Line at this point?
Yes.
Are we? Did he ask if I'm online?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Mr. President. Thank
But
you.
we're going to have the executive session at the end, but right now.
Yes, that's fine. As far as number one, I just want to apologize for not being there in person. I had a death in the family, so I had to come down to Florida. My oldest brother passed, so I apologize for not being there. As far as the rest of my report, the majority of it is all for executive session.
All I have to offer is that I was contacted yesterday by Sarah King from the Friends of White's Woods, who wants to meet with me and any other council members who would be. And we've set up a meeting for Thursday at 2:00 in this building, if anybody would like to attend. I know no more about the meeting than I just told you. So
This current Thursday. This Thursday.
this Thursday. And then, Mr. Mayor. Our discussion for the evening.
I want a job like yours.
I will. All right, while Kyle's getting ready, I want to thank the committee for everyone's work. We've met 3 times publicly. We had some community members show up, and Tammy was kind enough to come to one of our meetings as well to give her input. We don't expect to have any votes tonight, so this is just an informational session. Please don't come in with your specific ideas of what you want to accomplish tonight. We're just looking at the maps, and we are asking questions, and we'll try to answer any questions that you have about the process as much as possible. All right, included in the presentation tonight, we have our current 4-ward map with the council members reapportioned into different wards. We have a 6-ward map proposal, a 4-ward, 3-2 at large. We also outlined the legal process for going through this and what steps we need to take. And we presented a rough timeline with no delays, I suppose, of how we see this process going. What we did not include is any discussion of committee structure or meeting organization. We feel like that's another discussion for another time. And first we have to find out what we want to do with how many members and where they're coming from. All right, things to keep in mind. Why are we doing this? First, it's a principle of one person, one vote, which we are in violation of. We have a ward system that is not equitably distributed, and we need to resolve this. Traditionally, you do this every 10 years after the census. This has not historically been done in the borough, which is why our numbers are so lopsided, which you'll see next. What we did with the committee, we researched 15 similar boroughs. So that's boroughs that had universities that were smaller in size, under 45,000 population. Of those 15, 11 were organized using an at-large system. 4 used a ward system. None of those researched, we found, used a hybrid system. And the largest size was 8, smallest was 5. So obviously we're an outlier with 12. We met individually with the zoning staff to create custom ward maps. So Sarah and Luke and myself met with our staff member, Greg, to go over and create a map. So we've gone through the process of moving street by street, block by block, and we've found what we feel is the best map for each scenario. We also held 3 public meetings. I included in here a spreadsheet I'll make sure that we get a full-size PDF for those who want to look at that more detail. That's difficult on the notes. These are the 15 plus us boroughs that we looked at. So you can see I sorted this by population. So Indiana is a little bit higher on the population, and you can see how things break out. There's a number of boroughs that use a home rule charter, and so they don't follow strict borough code. They have a mayoral vote system. So they have 6 council members, and the mayor votes and presides over the meeting as if he was the president of council. This is data from 1994. These are the number of boroughs and the size of council. So the majority are 7. Let's get into the ward proposals. First, I want to show you the zoning map. This is just for your future reference as you take this home and look at these a little more. But there is a larger zoning map over on the wall, which will probably be more helpful than this one. And the reason I included this is because we're looking street by street, block by block in some of these maps. And so it's good to see, okay, that you can't tell that it's a commercial district or a university district, but if you have the zoning map, you can see that some of the wards are only commercial district or only university. All right, so this is our current borough map, and this is the population distribution. So we have 3 representatives from each of these wards equaling 12, and we do not have an equal population in each ward. That's the issue that we're trying to resolve. It does not hold to the principle of 1 person, 1 vote. So here's the ratio. We have first ward is 1 to 591 residents. Second ward is 1 representative to 911. Third, it's 2,600. Fourth, 534. So it's a pretty big gap in each of these wards. If we chose to do nothing to the map, which is possible, we could keep the current map and make no changes, we would have to move those 12 members around. And I know Jonathan already looked at this, so it would be 1 for first ward, 2 for second, 8 for third, and 1 for fourth. That is equal distribution. The benefits of maintaining the current map is it's very simple to understand. There are no changes. Disadvantages, it's obviously we have 8 council members in 1 location, and it's mostly because of the university population there. This is the distribution of members as it currently stands. And this would be the future elections if we were to pursue this. This is the transition that we would have to go through each election. So you'd see in 2023, we would have no vacancies in first, second, and fourth, but we would have 7 vacancies in third. And we would have to work that out till we got to 2027 is where we would have what would end up being the rotation. All right, this is our 6th ward proposal. Sarah can talk a little bit about this. She was the author of this map.
Well, the major problem in constructing the 6 wards was getting a reasonable distribution of students. And we wind up with pretty good numbers and perhaps not an ideal distribution, but it's not bad. And I mean, I kind of like the 6 ward configuration because if we stay with 12 council members, that means each ward only needs to have 2 members. Are there any questions about how we got to this? And I have to give all credit to Greg for working out, for dealing with the system so that when I got around to it, all I had to do was just point and move the little cursor around and everything came out perfectly.
Would this be legal? My understanding of reading the Borough Code is that if you redistrict, present your council.
No, we can redistrict and have any.
I'll,
any number of members. I don't think we could have people wind up with 18 members or 15 members or something like that, but no, we can certainly keep the 12.
you're supposed to have 2 members per ward. As, I mean, no more than 2.
Hey, this is Gerald. I'm on Zoom. I just had a question. If I heard you mention on the 6-ward system, having 2 per ward. Did you discuss having 1 per ward? To have 6 total?
Yeah, we have a couple different options for how to deal with that. So this is a 6-ward, similar sizes. IUP is divided amongst 2 wards. So it's like the purple and kind of a light purple. We've cut the campus in half. And we could recommend either 2 per each ward or 6. So 1 in each ward, and then we could choose to have an at-large, any number of at-large representatives. It'd be a more complicated ordinance, but I do think it's possible. The wards are more complex, so it's a little less intuitive for residents because it could be, block to block, this corner, that corner, we're in different wards. However, neighborhoods are focused and representation from the neighborhoods is prioritized.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Ward 3,
Mhm.
the 2,304. There we go, Ward 3.
Yep,
In Ward 3,
that is on campus.
that's my point.
Yeah,
Would
the
any
issue-
of them be considered year-round residents if they have to leave in the
Correct.
summer with that style housing?
yeah,
Still would.
it would be complicated. I know you have to live here for 1 year before you're determined to be a resident.
Right, but I didn't know how it
So-
classified with, because it wasn't a go home for the summer, it's a move out of this building. So that was my question.
I mean, I don't think
Just does
historically
count
we've
them.
had,
but-
Even in that ward, I think we managed to get some part of the residential area into it. Yes, it's mostly dormitories.
it's,
But
yeah,
we
The
tried-
question I'm asking here is, it would be living in that building count for the continuous residency requirement? That's what I'm asking. Because I know they're counting the census. It's-
Your address regularly. To be a member of the council, you have to live at the same address. We're in the same, not at the same address, in the same ward for a year before you
And
run.
that was my only question. Would that style housing basically, would they be able to sit on the council if 98% of that housing was 1 semester at a time housing?
yeah, that, I don't know the answer to that question. That is a good question.
It's a good question, but if they are residents in the same ward for 2 years in a row, if they're in a dorm and they're in a different dorm, even if their specific mailing address changes, if they're registered to
Stay in the same ward, right?
Correct,
right.
yeah.
I would, and so I think the answer is going to be yes. I think it's a decent question.
Very likely. If they're a 4-year college student, though, we would be appointing them reappointing a position because they wouldn't be able to serve the 4-year term.
The number of percentage of the college students who actually graduate in 4 years is very small.
Yeah, and they don't usually live on campus those 4 years.
They live in the same house for 4 years is almost 0.
Right. So if somebody lived on campus, moved off campus, they can't continue their service because the ward system. This does create 2 wards that are predominantly student housing. So the central ward is both commercial and student housing. If you look at the zoning map behind you, you'll see that there are no, there's very little residential area within that ward.
But there is, in the commercial, there is housing
Correct.
above. those,
Yes,
right?
yes, we're relying on
Well,
a
we
few
got it.
blocks.
That's why we got
to
enough
pull
residents
somebody
to
from-
fill the ward.
Mhm.
Because there are people living there.
Are they considered residents? Are they counted as residents?
The leisure says, right? If they're legally living there, then.
People who live in Indiana are counted as residents.
Yep. All right, so the benefits and disadvantages. The benefits is we have a strong neighborhood focus and it distributes representation evenly throughout the borough, north, south, east, west, all directions. The disadvantages, it's a complicated map and it's likely difficult for residents to understand. And if we did have students that were moving from ward to ward, we would be reappointing different students to fill those positions. It would require future revisions to the map, most likely. We're supposed to be doing this every 10 years, and if we're getting down to this nitty gritty, we will likely see some revisions in the future. It would necessitate on-campus housing, students serving on council. 2 or more of the 6 wards are predominantly student housing, which could get into issues of quorums that we could see in the future if we were not able to make quorums, we weren't able to, sign paving contracts, some of the necessary functions of government, especially in the summer when those contracts are usually signed. And it does not allow for the reduction of the number of council members unless we went with the mixed at large and individual. So that's a 6th ward. Does anyone have any more questions about 6th ward other than the residential question? I think that's more of a Pat question. I think we'll have to do a little more research on who is a resident and can serve.
So did I just hear correctly that with the 6 ward system, you could not have 6 council members?
No,
Oh, you could.
you can have
Good.
6, but
Okay.
we have to have at least 7. So at least one member
That's
would
what I
have to
meant.
be at
You
large.
do need at least 7
Yes,
because of our
Yes.
population or what?
Unless we
was?
went-
that's just borough code. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Unless we went through
The
the
home
process of
rule.
doing a home rule charter, which is a voter referendum.
Complicated, the fun
Yeah,
thing.
I see a lot of shaking
Say,
heads.
though.
These, so the ward boundaries, oh, I'm going the wrong direction. There we go. Ford Ward. So this is the redesigned 4-ward map. You can see evenly distributed. So it's divided into 4 wards of equal sizes. IUP campus is again divided amongst 2 wards. That's pretty much required anytime you're doing this map, is you have to divide IUP campus. 8-member council is recommended, 2 for each ward. The benefits is it maintains, oh wait, Luke, did you want to talk about this before I continue?
There's not a whole lot to add. I mean, it's extremely hard to find. I mean, I was a big fan of the 4 wards. When you break out the population, it's extremely hard to get it much different than this. And still, I mean, and if you don't know how the program works, you can click one of those little boxes and 3 of them might light up and your population density may change by 600 people, right? It's dramatic, and dealing with around campus, it's incredibly hard to find a better breakdown. It really is. And trying to include residential, there's not a lot of residential in Ward 3 and Ward 2 still. There's a huge student population. There's more than in the 6th ward. I think Ward 3 had about roughly 500 that I considered not on campus. And Ward 2, I think, was roughly 1,000 that is considered not on campus. But if you look at those streets and where they are, I mean, you have South 7th Street, you have the east side of Wayne Avenue. I mean, there's a large amount of student housing throughout that whole area, and it's just extremely challenging. It really is. One thing I would point out with Ward 4, and I know we're not supposed to gaze 10 years in the future, but if I'm not mistaken, there's a potential large building project, the carriage houses. I think I'm getting my meetings conflated. I think that was at the ad hoc. I think I mentioned it. And so it's not a huge swing. It's like a 300, maybe 400 population swing. So it would still keep us in our margins, but it is something to keep in mind. If they don't put housing back there, it will lower the population of Ward 4 by default. Not by default, I guess. They could still live in Ward 4, but those places to live would not be there anymore. And again, that's kind of a minor thing. It still keeps you kind of within that 500 of the other wards. But it's the same challenge with the student population. It's not that they can't sit on borough, on the council. but there are challenges that go with that.
Correct, correct. All right, so here's the benefits and disadvantages. The benefits is it maintains some geographical boundaries to ensure that the representation is spread across the borough. And it splits campus and student housing in half to allow for some, he was able to capture in some residential areas in each of those wards. Some of them are very small and it could be literally 2 blocks, but there are some in each. The disadvantages is the first and fourth ward contains the majority of the permanent residents. Second and third wards are majority university, student housing, and the central commercial district. So that it's difficult to know whether we'll get interest in those areas. Currently serving members. So you can see the first ward and the fourth ward is where our members currently live and historically have lived because those are the residential areas. Second ward, because of that move into the residential area, we pick up Don into second and then Smith and Ford into third. And it basically is your block. Your neighborhood would be where we're trying to pull from. So here's the future election transition. It's pretty straightforward, except for we have a lot of folks in first ward that need to finish out their terms. And so there would be 0 vacancies, and then we would have to have 2 vacancies, and it would be split, one with a 2-year and one with a 4-year, so that by the time we get to 2027, we're back into what would be the future rotation.
With both this one and the previous one, this overly complicates things, so just excuse me in advance, but if we were to combine the 2 wards that are in the university area, if we were to combine them and into one ward, but that ward had twice the number of representation of the other wards, is that legal?
We would have to have twice the number of representatives from that ward.
Right.
Yeah.
So it would be like 2-4-2 or something. like
Correct.
that.
Yes,
'Cause what-
you can do that.
Okay.
Yes, you can. This will be the next map I have is split like that, where you have some where we have wards that are double the size and it has double the representation. So yes, that's a possible solution if you guys like the 6 or the 4.
For this current map, have you thought of doing the two council members per ward? Is having
This would
8?
be, yeah, we recommended 2 per ward, then we would be at 8.
Okay.
Mhm.
Can I just ask you guys, did you consider like a 1-1-1-1 and then a 3 at large for 7?
We did not discuss a hybrid model. We did not find that in other boroughs. And I don't think we really found an advantage to doing it that way, simply because you'll have 3 or more that would be running for everybody. And then there's some, they're running for, a couple thousand. So we didn't find the advantages of that. So we did not fully look into what that possibility. We didn't see any other examples other than some larger cities that did it that way.
Does Gerald have thoughts on that? Why do you suggest?
I've thought about it a lot. I appreciate the research that folks have done, and that's not a common thing. I think the wards are important, and I also understand the challenges that are within, and I feel like it's a possible solution out to make sure we can fill ward seats, not necessarily with 2 and maybe with 1, but still have a nice odd number. I hear what folks are saying, filling those middle 2 wards with four people is difficult. It'd be nicer if it could be 1 each. But so that those are my thoughts about it. So that's why I like the hybrid idea, and I've mentioned it a couple times.
Yeah, I know that when we were, Nicole and I were at the conference, there was folks from Johnstown and they had a hybrid model. And I know they're a larger city, so I'm not sure what they felt it was, people liked running at large, but it was, it's obviously a city, so it's a different scenario. But I'm sure we could discuss with them what they find, how that helpful. Some of the at-large hybrids, I guess you could term it at-large and hybrid, is that they have the home rule charter, so the mayor is elected at large and serves basically as council president, and then there's still wards. But that would be a larger process that we would have to go through. All right, so here's a 3-ward map. This is based on, we looked at the Shippensburg map and they have it, their map is separated into east, central, and west, which was a kind of interesting idea. And considered maybe we could do this so that universities still had a good amount of residential zone within the central ward. Now, because of the size of the university, it was difficult to get them even. So they are not even. They are divided into east, central, and west. East, central, and west are similarly, east and west are similar sized, where central ward is larger. It's about double. And we recommend 8-member council, 2 for the east and west, and 4 for central. The ward boundaries are simple. They follow straight north and south streets. The west boundary is 10th Street north of campus, following 11th abutting campus, and the east ward boundary is down 6th Street. So that's very straightforward. People get a sense of what side of the road. That's the benefit of our current system, is that it's very simple to understand. So the benefits are, it creates some representation in each part of the borough, at least east to west. Simple to understand. The disadvantages are similar to the other maps.
There is one thing you got mistaken. Both Kratz and I would live in the central west of South 6th Street. And you have us listed as living in the east.
Oh, on the next one. Okay.
He lives west of Sarah Stillman, and so do I.
Okay. All right, good. Yeah.
But so the stuff you're going to go over
Mhm.
in transitioning is not right.
Okay. All right. So it's an 8-member council divided across. The majority of council members reside in east and west. It sounds like I made a mistake. There's
Yeah,
2,
there's
there's
4
3
in
in
central.
4 in central?
Yep.
Yes, because
Kratz and myself,
Stillman.
Palazzo, and Stillman.
There we go. So a large part of the central ward is commercial, but there is quite a bit of residential in that as well. So this seems more viable. So there we go. That's incorrect then. Okay. Does anyone have any thoughts on this 3-ward possibility?
I just wanted to, I didn't quite hear everything that Don was clarifying on that one slide with the number of representatives currently in there.
Gerald, he was saying that both he and Josh Kratza live in the central, in the kind of yellow area.
Right.
So it's not as lopsided. No. So it's
you
evened
flip
out,
to
and
that
that
slide?
means the transition is incorrect that I have on there.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Gotta move on.
Does anyone have any other questions about this map possibility?
Oh, I had one more question. Yeah, the recommendation was 8. And maybe I misunderstood. Is there a requirement in terms of the number? Can we have an even number?
We can have an even number, yeah. This was divided, so it's 2 and 2 and then 4 in the middle, because we could put 3, but that's not.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Even, yeah.
That's very clear, and that makes a lot of sense. I guess are we allowed to have 8? Does the code allow us to have 8?
Yes, if we go at large, we are only allowed to have 7, no more and no less. But if we continue our ward system, we can pretty much
yeah,
choose
yeah.
any number above 7 and below 12 and under.
Thank you.
Yeah. Shippensburg, they have 6. Yes.
They do have the complication that their west ward is in a different county from the other 2 wards.
Yeah. And some of the boroughs we looked at do not have the university actually inside the borough,
That's what she-
which creates, it's a lot easier for them. Yeah. So I apologize for the error there. That changes things quite a bit.
It's a little more balanced.
It does make it more balanced. Yes. Yeah. I think as we're getting down to 3, 2, and 1, it's making more sense. So here's the proposed 2-ward map. So we're looking at just east and west. We remove the central district. They're evenly sized. We recommend 8 members, 4 in each ward. It follows very simple north and south streets. It utilizes some of the current ward boundaries. So 7th Street would still be the boundary, north of Philly, and then south of Philly it jogs down 8th, and then Locust and Pratt. That is to cut student housing in half so that we can have it even. That's why we had to do it that way. Because there is this pink strip here, this is 800 people. So we had to, that was a challenge that all of us that made maps had to deal with. So the benefits, it maintains some, at least east-west boundaries. It's very simple to understand, explain to residents. But with only 2 wards, north and south are not necessarily evenly represented. The same is true for the 3-ward map because it's all vertical wards.
Sort of designation that you can create. that- Not even. that's
We
not-
wouldn't be able to unless we created 4 wards again, right? So right now, as it stands, we're evenly divided west and east if we were going to continue on in this 2-ward map. And it goes into a 2-and-2 election pretty quickly from 2023, 2025, because we have so many folks that are continuing their terms. There's a little adjustment here in 2025. So at-large proposal, here's the map, guys. It's the easiest one to do. We don't need to redistrict. 7 members are required by law. It's extremely simple to understand. It efficiently addresses the need, the challenges faced by our large student population when creating ward maps. It creates an odd number of council to avoid any tie votes. However, it does not ensure equal representation spread across the borough, and it could result in one area having undue influence.
And I was left off in the transitioning page, so.
Sorry, there's a lot of
There's
copying,
more
pasting
balance.
over
There's
time
more
here.
balance there.
There we go. What's up?
Make a quick comment.
Mhm.
Historically, when I checked with council members in East Stroudsburg, they continue to have a ward system, but Stroudsburg, their sister municipality, went to at-large a few years ago, and they commented that at this point, far and away, the greatest number of council members come from one neighborhood in Stroudsburg. So they did find themselves in that situation in which an imbalance developed and then accelerated.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a hazard of going to at-large system, is that you cannot distribute your representation. And wards are a good way to distribute the representation. So this is the transition to an at-large system. It transitions, we could transition to 7 to 8, or we could go right to 7 and adjust our 2025 election to include 2-year and 4-year terms. So that'll be a decision that we make down the road. That's a detail. The committee discussed this and we recommended either at large or 2 wards. Though now with the 3-ward adjustment, it does put us into a much more fair representation as well. And I don't know about all of council or all of the committee, but I would be comfortable with the 3-ward as well.
Well, I wasn't around for the last meeting, and I wouldn't recommend either of the choices that the other members of the committee made. I think there is something to be said for the 3-ward system.
With three ward system,
Yeah.
how many council members?
8,
Eight.
8. So 2 in the east
Four,
and west
two.
and 4 in the central. And the 4 is, the central is
Sa-
mostly.
Sarah, what was your
university.
recommendation? Sarah, what was your recommendation on as the ad hoc committee member?
You recommended the 3.
The 3.
Despite the fact that I have authorship of 6 and I liked it a lot when we got finished with it, I think 3 has some real advantages.
Yeah, I agree. I did the 3 ward map because I was really interested in the division and creating that kind of channel in the middle. But yeah, I made an error when putting you guys in and
It actually
just,
makes it a better.
it makes it a lot
map.
better
I apologize. I had stepped out just for a brief second.
Yeah.
Thinking I'd already heard this, and I come back in, you're talking.
New
about something
information.
myth.
Yeah. So there's actually 2 individuals that are in the center
They actually.
map
do
on 3rd.
one
Yeah.
side.
Yeah, I had them on the wrong,
So,
Okay.
the wrong
Yeah, so it
side.
gives us 4, 3.
So
Yeah.
it makes it 4.
So it actually makes
Okay.
it balanced.
Yeah.
So I guess the only question I would have with that would be, if you need 4 from that ward.
Mhm.
For,
and-
yes,
And
2 on the other side.
2, 4, 2.
Mhm.
essentially, I guess what I'm trying to say is, do we project there being a problem getting 4 people?
There
That was one of the
already are 4.
challenges. What?
There are already 4. I mean, I know something could happen and you wouldn't run, but currently there are 4.
I mean, yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
4 once, you get 4 again. Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
Large to get people to run. I think with the 4 and the 6, you're looking at much more
Yeah, it's,
difficulty.
that's kind of what we determined when looking at the zoning map. Is that it's difficult to see where we could pull on some of the 4 and the 6 if we had enough permanent residents in those areas.
Mm.
Just to check my math on the 3 ward map.
Yep, I can go back.
If, because as you guys have said, the sort of number of people is actually a separate discussion, how it's gonna affect wards and everything, or affect committees.
Mhm.
But if we wanted to keep 12, we could do 3, 6, 3, and it would still be proportional.
Correct, if you wanted to do 12. Mhm. If we wanted to do 12,
Body decide that's a good idea.
correct.
Okay. I'm just making sure that math
Yes,
is
yeah, we can adjust as long as we're above, like we're 7 and up.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason I bring up is some of these, the math doesn't, there is no other mathematical options for some of them in terms
Correct.
of having it be proportional. Whereas this one does give you a little bit of.
Yes, we have some flexibility there. Yeah. I think that's going to have to be a discussion for another time,
Are you
like
saying
how
about
we do
3, 3,
how we
6?
break down the
Yeah,
committees,
3, 6, 3,
3, 6, 3.
just as an option.
simply because that's much more complicated.
Briefly back to the 4th ward population breakdown.
Okay.
Okay, so forgive me because all these lines look the same on this little map. In that one, you have 7,000 people roughly between Ward 3 and Ward 4. And then in your 3 ward breakdown, you still have roughly 7,000 people, and you added
Mhm.
the however many blocks above it.
This section is not there in the 3 ward map. I took out all of that student housing in the 3 ward.
That lower line slides to the west.
It slides down.
Which line?
Like we cut out here and we had
Because
to
in the
finagle
forward-
it quite a bit. Yeah.
In the 4 ward map, your western boundary is the same.
This is mostly commercial. Like it didn't change too much. And also up here, it's residential, but it's not very tight.
I see. Look, see, there's that, and see, that's all.
Okay,
Here.
okay.
Yeah. This isn't good for people with glasses. Getting old like me.
Sorry, I think what she pointed out to me was, I think that's what, 7th, so. it would
Yeah,
be
where the
fifth,
green
but
is.
Between 5th and 6th, I didn't realize wasn't on this map. It's on the 4 ward map and not
Yeah.
on this. I was just trying to figure out how we still had 7,000 people.
Yeah.
That's all,
No, I get you.
because it seemed like we added a lot of square footage and not a lot of people. That's all.
Yeah, some of,
So, okay, that was what I was missing.
yes. So yeah, this is a 6th Street on the east side, and then it's 10th and then down to 11th there.
Same, on the south side of town, that's the
Mhm.
same as in with the 4 ward. It's the
Correct.
east side boundary that's different that I missed.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
That's still a lot of students, that's all. But like you pointed out, we have 4 now. So if we have 4 once, we could do it again.
I like the 3.
How you're gonna develop
Yeah.
committees. Too many people showing up to too many meetings or not enough people showing up to not enough, like, that it was evenly distributed now, but if you want to get involved, then you're showing up 6 days a week. There was just so, so what do you project could be the benefit?
Of shrinking council. A number of other municipalities have a smaller council and they meet, everyone meets less time. So I spoke at great length to Carlisle Borough that has 6 members and then the mayor votes, right? They have a home rule charter. But he talked at length about how they used to have more committees and more members. However, when they were restructuring things, they decided that doing it that way prevents those with the busiest schedules from gaining all the information. And I know that there's a number of council members sitting here that also feel the same way, that being able to attend and speak to the staff members from all the departments is beneficial when making decisions. And so having those meetings combined and less meetings makes us a more effective council member. So that's the thought behind shrinking and reducing meetings.
Casey,
Yes.
you may have already answered this question. I'm sorry if you have. Did you guys put any thought into how our committees might fit into these different proposals? Or has that not been thought about yet? That's next
Yeah,
step.
we felt that that was a discussion to have after we decide
Okay.
how many members that we're, and if we're going to go with wards or at large, because that is a much larger discussion that I think that we all need to have maybe a different kind of input on. And we wanted to talk to other boroughs and municipalities a little more to get a sense of how they structured their committees. There's so many options for how to do it.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah. This, yeah.
Lines have not changed the committees.
Right.
They are cousins. They're not brothers.
Yes.
Not married.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, they're definitely related, but this is the thing that has to get done this year. Whereas we have some time to really talk about how we want to see the committees going in the future. Mhm.
Try out one model, and if it doesn't work, try a different model.
Yeah, we can change the committee structure at any time to an extent, right?
If I just comment, I really appreciate the work that the ad hoc committee's done. I think I had a lot of questions about what are possibilities, and you've laid them out really well, and I appreciate the work that all you guys put into it. I think it looks great. You mentioned just now that maybe one of our first decisions is between a ward system and an at-large system. So I guess maybe I know you mentioned you're going to talk a little bit about process, but is that the first decision you would need to make?
Well, we would need to look at what ward maps. It sounds like 3, 2, and 1 are our favorite options. And I want you to take the maps home and think about it and look through different options. There may be more than one good option. I think that's what the committee came to, was that there are multiple options that will satisfy one person, one vote. However, I know a lot of folks are concerned about having representation groups in one area. And if we want to avoid that, we want to avoid at large.
And I wouldn't recommend it compared to the other ones.
Would?
I would not.
Would not, okay.
Not
Thank
in
you.
the, not in the lines that we landed on.
Mm.
Now, I'm not saying if we wanted to do something about keeping them where they are and whatever that would mean, oh, that's a different conversation. But for the one that.
Luke, I'm sorry, could you say?
No. Can you hear the mic any better?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
Can you hear me, Gerald?
yes, I'm sorry. Could you just
Sorry,
say,
when
you
I
said
was-
you did recommend or not recommend?
I would, in the 4 ward map that's in the packet, I would not recommend, based on the way that the population breakdown was compared to some of the other choices. That's the short answer. To help.
Okay, thank you, thank
simplify Going forward.
All right, does anyone have any questions about the maps
Just
before we move on?
one more quick
Yeah.
question, Casey. So is it true that most of these would basically by 2025, they would shake out to whatever they're gonna be?
Yeah,
And then by 2032-ish, we'd have to do this again anyways?
it depends on this. Our population is not significantly changing.
Okay.
You're supposed to change if any ward is 10%
10%.
Okay.
out of whack.
But
right?
basically, we have a pretty good opportunity. Well, I guess what I'm driving at is, one way to do it, we have a pretty good opportunity for like a trial run on something. Because we've got
Correct.
about a 5-year window, and then we would legally maybe have to look at it again anyways.
Yeah, we should be looking at this every 10 years after the census, as long as we're keeping wards. Obviously, if it's at large, there's nothing to look at. But anytime you have a ward, we're going to have to look at it. But the rule of thumb is 10%
Okay.
difference.
I think that's important, but I also, I think about this as a pretty big possible long-term decision. The past practice, even though we're supposed to do it every 10 years, the past practice in most municipalities across Southwest Pennsylvania is not to do it every 10 years. That 3-ward system seems to offer a lot of flexibility to me.
Yeah, I agree. All right, does anyone have any more questions about the wards and the maps? Yeah.
3-ward system.
Mhm.
Is that mostly university then in the central?
If you look behind you on the zoning map, you'll see it's university, mixed use, commercial, some residential too, and then a number of residential one as you go north.
So has any thought been given to, hopefully IUP's enrollment's going to go way up, right? I mean, we all hope that that's going to happen.
If it
Would
goes
we
way up, we may have to
redo
redistrict.
it?
Yeah, I mean, if something positive
we do, we
happens,
have
we
to
may
do.
have to change, but
Yeah.
it's okay. Yeah,
Same.
correct. Yeah, and if
Well-
they tear down a number of buildings in, what was that pink West Ward, and they don't replace that with housing, we may be looking at a deficit in that ward as well.
Yeah.
That we have to move the line a little bit to make up for it.
Really, any of these.
Anytime you're drawing lines, you're gonna have to move a line if something major
they're at large.
changes. Yeah,
And two, there's less line changing if there has to be changes made.
correct. Yeah, your
Which is
window is a little
Easier for
broader.
everybody.
Yeah, once you carved it into 4 or 6,
Yeah, yeah.
any amount of change, you're gonna have to move lines,
Well, and most of the population changes
which makes
center
it difficult
anyway.
for the residents as well. If they're constantly being moved wards and they live in the same place.
Yeah.
Did you guys happen to, this is out of curiosity, did you guys happen to find out the answer to when the last time Indiana did reapportionment?
No, nobody remembered.
I have heard it's been
Closest
attempted
one.
multiple times.
We didn't make any changes.
Yeah.
That was at least 10 years ago, at least.
Yeah, at least 10 years ago. Okay. Yeah, there's been attempts.
There was 10 years ago. I was on
It was more than 10 years ago because I wasn't
More
involved.
than
I
10.
think there's a number of attempts.
Fine, I just can't keep track.
That was a longer time.
I think it's closer to 20.
I'm glad somebody's having a good time there.
I like your
All right, does anyone have any more questions before we move on to what we consider the process? All right. So here's the legal process. Pat went over this with us, and this is from him as well. So if we're maintaining wards, you have to create 2 ordinances. And they can be drafted at the same time, voted on the same time, but they would include one for the map and one for the number of council members, a portion to each ward. The draft ordinances would likely be reviewed by the admin committee, and then if approved, move to council. Then council can discuss and then advertise those maps publicly. If passed, then we'll go ahead and vote after 30 days of advertising. So it's not that complicated of a process. It's more of we have to come to a consensus about which ordinance and which map we feel comfortable with and how many members of council we feel comfortable with. So those decisions need to be made really at the same time, though we could choose to not make them at the same time, but we'll have to make the decision at least by the end of the year on both of them. Going at large, it's similar process, but there's only one ordinance because by borough code, it has to be 7. We don't really have a choice. So it'll be 7 at large and it'd be the same ordinance, similar process. So here's our proposed timeline. This is the fastest that it could possibly happen, which is over the course of many months. So next Tuesday, Nicole and I are going on the radio to present the maps and some of our findings and discuss this. On August 2nd or the 16th, depending on how the discussion goes, we'll discuss this as a whole and then move it forward to admin, what our recommendation from council is. Then they'll review it. If they
Can I
have,
ask you a clarification question? For the August 2nd, are we voting on something or recommending something that then goes to committee?
it
And
would
then
go
it'll
to,
come-
we would ask them to draft an ordinance for
Okay.
either 3 wards with this
But
many
not-
council members, 2 wards or at large.
Does
Yes,
does that need a motion or,
Be a vote.
it would be, it would be vote.
wards.
Yeah.
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 So it's not making, but it's not chiseling anything in stone, that is simply.
No, it's a
voting
vote to
send it
draft the ordinance, which will then come back to us.
Gotcha.
Right? Now, so we can do that at any time, but there is a process to finish it out. So there is a somewhat of a time crunch eventually. Maybe by October, we definitely should make a decision. But since it's fresh, we should probably talk about it August 2nd and the 16th if we need more time, right? If we don't have a consensus. And then the 23rd is the admin committee meeting where they can look over the ordinance. And then the earliest they could bring it to council would be September 6th. And the earliest we could vote would be the 4th of October.
I don't know if Pat can hear us. Does that give him enough time to write them?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I don't foresee any problem
Perfect.
to do that.
Yeah. Better to ask than to.
Hey, don't assume it's boilerplate. I'm gonna give tender loving care to it. But no, you're right. It is pretty standard and pro forma, a lot of it, but certainly we'll have to tweak it based on
Right.
the different options.
Can I ask a question about the process, the timeline? On the August 6th or 2nd or 16th, it says, it looks like you have a choice there between an at-large or 2 ward map.
That was our original recommendation, but we have adjusted
see.
it to a 3 ward map based on the corrections that Don made. That was our recommendations from, obviously you can vote on, we can vote on any number of the maps.
So, the proposed timeline here is that on our next, one of our next 2 meetings, we'll basically make the decision that we want to, have our administration to move forward.
Yes, this is the earliest possible timeline. We can always delay.
Yeah.
We're good at that. And we can
Yeah.
delay for a while because this is giving us a final vote in October. Realistically, we can push that final vote to December and maintain our goal of finishing it within the year.
We can also change our minds. If we write an ordinance and decide we don't like it, it's not final.
Correct. It's not final until on this calendar, October 4th.
Our process though, generally, because it costs money to write an ordinance, usually we make decision of what that ordinance is going to be, pretty final. So I totally, again, I want to thank the ad hoc committee. I think it's great. And I appreciate the additional input, part at the bottom. I do have feelings that I think the process should be as public and transparent as possible, and in government that means time. I'd recommend that we do what we can to get some opportunity for feedback from the public on this presentation that you guys have just presented. I think it would be great for the entire public to be able to see this and give feedback on all of them. It sounds like we kind of have a consensus here on this 3rd ward, but maybe not. And I would hate for us to jump to that consensus without giving, a long time for kind of that, this entire presentation to be out there, to be circulated, to be discussed. It would be great to have to have another public hearing specifically to talk about it. And I think I mentioned too, I emailed, I guess, a bunch of times about what a process we could look at would be that ARP funding. We did a great process on getting information out to the public for that ARP. That was a little bit longer, but I feel like, and so you guys have already gone through a good public process. You've had 3 meetings, you've had people input. Here's our first step. Why don't we schedule for December 2nd, and
I
in the
think
middle
we
there.
understand your point, G.
Yeah, you want to go slower. We have been doing this for a while though, so, and there's 2 meetings that people. that
I
are
I
nothing
agree.
but
I agree,
discussion.
Luke, but the product that you guys have put out here is really incredible. I think it's really interesting. And I think it really deserves a good time for people to chew it over. I would hate for people to not see this. I mean, we are essentially restructuring democracy for Indiana Borough.
Yes,
you
we
know,
are making it more representative. Off the top of my
Yeah,
head,
so we're
no, but
restructuring
it's
democracy in
smaller.
Indiana Borough. So
Like most places.
From election to election.
Yes.
And it depends on whether there's a national election or not.
Yeah.
So forth.
I understand your point. I think we have a number of opportunities. If we find that we would like more time and more input, I think we can ask for that, certainly. I guess it would be a council decision if you wanted to schedule or put out surveys. However, this is a little more complicated than just, I would like to see stormwater done in my area. They do have to have a bit of knowledge, and they have to have at least educated themselves on this map. Because if you just come in, well, I want
Yeah, are we soliciting?
this many
people?
wards.
yeah,
I mean, if they
restructuring
don't
democracy is
have-
pretty tough. They're gonna have to educate themselves.
Correct.
Are we fairly soliciting people's opinions is what I'm getting at a little bit.
I guess my question is, what is the difference between an advertised meeting with it on the agenda, such as tonight, and one on a Wednesday? Because if we're adding a meeting for public discussion, that's all it is.
Yeah.
Is it usually a different day of the week?
And,
It's the
you know,
exact
we,
same thing. People come in, we talk, and it's the same thing. We've had multiple public meetings. I don't know if delaying this just to say we have delayed it really makes any kind of sense.
Can I make?
I would say it's not to say
Gerald, could, Ben had his hand up real quick.
we have delayed it. I would say that it's so that we can clearly say that we did everything we could to sort of reach out to the public. I would also say that we could probably add on to one of our
Okay, I
currently
think Ben
scheduled
had
meetings. I would
something to
happy to
say,
host a public
G.
meeting.
He's right ahead of you.
So at this stage, what we might try is, it was in the paper earlier this week that we're having this meeting. We've had the meeting. I'm sure it'll be covered in the paper tomorrow or sometime this week. Nicole and Casey are going to be on the radio. And there is actually a live stream. So if you want to bring a map and hold it up, that'd be fun. It means that Nicole's not on the.
I'll bring a
live stream.
big board.
But and then we're gonna talk about it again on the 2nd. If we get large and conflicting public input on the 2nd, then I think that would potentially warrant some outreach to understand.
Yeah.
If looks like tonight, which is pretty good to see you, Jim. It's pretty
I mean,
sparse.
I asked him to come because he is the reason why we're all doing
I
this.
mean, that might tell us about the public interest in this as well.
Correct.
Since November.
I would encourage us, Ben, and I think this is a thing that we get into a lot is we think, well, it's in the
Gerald-
paper and we
Gerald,
have
we
public
have-
meetings. And
we
so
have
that means
public
that people want
comment.
to
If
show
you
up, they
could-
do. I think.
Gerald, we have
Gerald,
public
again, you know,
comment if you could. Thank you.
Again, I think we need to be aggressive about reaching to the
Brenda
public.
is actually a borough resident and she said she was coming tonight.
I'm
as
sorry.
a borough
Again,
resident.
I think we need to be aggressive about reaching out to the. I'm sorry. Again, I think we need to be aggressive about reaching out to
Gerald, there is public talking. Can you pause your
the
comment for a
public.
minute?
Yeah.
We didn't even hear it.
Should give them the mic, so.
Yeah, give him the mic.
Thank you. I came tonight to thank you all and because I had my hands dirty a little bit on this back when I was part of this body. And I'm proud of the work that the committee has done. I wanted to get this done last year. When I see how much work y'all did, I'm glad I didn't stay to do it. It's very complicated. But the most, I just hope we all remember, and I know you do, and I know more than me. The most important thing here is we fit the one person, one vote doctrine, which we talk about democracy. That is, I mean, we all think that we believe in that, and I know that we do. And these other things are important, committee structures and transitions, all that's important. But golly, I mean, the one thing that really matters is that I live in First Ward. My, Luke, right? You live in Third Ward?
Third Ward.
My vote is worth 4 times what yours is. That's not democracy.
Right.
And that really has to change. That's the most important thing. And as a member of the public, I don't care what you do about committee assignments and where the lines are drawn, or if they are. And I promise you, 95% of your constituents do not know what ward they live in and do not care. 95% of your constituents do not know that there's 12 council people and don't care if there's 20 or 5. But I think they would appreciate, and whatever you do, I'm sure you'll do it great. But I think everybody in all your constituents will appreciate having a fair election, which means that their vote, his vote, has the same value of mine. That's all I got.
Talking about anecdotes, as I moved around the borough today, talking to people that I know, this subject came up over and over. But of course, as soon as they asked me, well, what exactly are you doing? What are the issues? I got this, my eyes glaze over and you take care of it. I invited people to come to the meeting and they said, no, we trust you, take care of it.
That's
They're
been my
interested.
experience as well.
So can I appreciate that everybody just trusts us to do the thing. Just for the sake of, say somebody wants to send some feedback about it. What is the process can we set up an easy way for somebody to send some feedback, much like we did with the ARP? Maybe it's just right up on the website. Hey, here are some new proposals for
I mean, I think we can certainly put,
maps.
I'd
What do you
like to
think
edit
about
the
them? Can we
presentation.
do an aggressive
to-
push?
To adjust for the new information.
Yeah.
And that can go online with a survey that is simple to do.
Yeah.
The reason I put August 2nd or the 16th as a possible date is because we may find that our discussion on August 2nd is not finalized. Maybe there's more comment and we want to have a special work session on the 16th just dedicated to this. Or do we have something else planned?
The August 2nd is going to be tight because we have the stamp presentation.
Okay, so it may end up being August 16th regardless, and we may just want to bill it as, this is our discussion session and come with feedback, and we can see whatever feedback we have through the website and social media. I don't think that'd be complicated to do, but I do think the presentation, or at least some of the maps and explanations, should be part of it for those who are interested.
Would the survey be incognito, or would they have to state who or what ward or where they live or anything like that?
I would prefer it be borough residents.
Yes, please.
Yeah,
Verify that though.
it's not enforceable, but you could, that's a difficulty, right? Don?
Seems like we could follow the same process as ARP.
I think part of the reason Peter said people were talking about it, I know my wife was interested, is she saw the article that was in the paper yesterday. If we have help with the press to make little blurb or whatever that this is available, whatever, I think that's going to help get the word out if people want to look at these things and add their comments in.
My husband tells me, Josh Widdowson says you're going to talk about zoning today. And I said, you're right, Bill. So the radio's doing a good job. Yeah.
Well,
that's how he learns about the borough.
to
was
piggyback,
Josh.
to piggyback off of that,
You're welcome.
to piggyback off of that, when you see the article, make sure you're sharing it on Facebook and
Yeah.
on social media too, because
Yeah.
that just helps circulate it as well.
I have a question for
They-
Peter.
that's the only station
I
that
think it
does
would be
this.
helpful if it was appropriate. Could we do like a, where your gut feeling is on everybody's vote on this? If anybody, like, I have one that jumps out at me as being my favorite.
Yeah, a straw vote tonight. is
You
what
want to do a
want?
straw poll?
Where you
of-
guys
of
stand on feelings
Okay.
and,
Feelings, not decisions.
Yeah, not
Okay.
decisions.
Not yet. I'm still digesting it all.
Yeah, I had one walking in here and then the change to the 3-1
Yeah.
kind of threw me off.
Some three.
I would go
Three
with that.
feelings, 2, 3 feelings, 3,
I like the three idea.
4. I am also satisfied with 3. I mean, anything that gives us a better representation and is not
And
too
it-
complicated for the future.
Exactly.
I think that it's a winning, and a couple of them fit that bill.
Yeah, but there's a lot to do. I think there's a lot we can be discussing. Is there also any chance with the third Thursday? I know this week it's kind of quick, but having information available for any public that would come up and want to talk about it.
Great idea.
I mean, I think we could have some of the maps, and I think we could have some of the explanation of how they were designed, and
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. That would be easy to do.
Those are opportunities where we've been getting feedback on the ARP. We could get feedback from folks on this as well.
Does anyone have any more input on this presentation?
Good job.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I
I'll
want to
make the-
reiterate, I think this presentation is fantastic and I hope we can get it out. I would love an electronic copy as soon as you get those edits in. Just as is, I wouldn't do much except do those edits. I think it's wonderful. It's fantastic. Thank you for the work on it.
No, you're welcome. I'll make sure the 3rd ward is adjusted, and I think that's the only major edit.
Good job, Casey.
Is there any other old business for us? Is there any new business? Then we're going to adjourn into an executive session and thank members of the public and the press who are attending.
We just put a lot of pressure on.